Thank you very much. Uh, the MC for the introduction. I'll be using presentation for this period. Don't know whether it's up. As you have heard, I'm representing the Director General, Tvet Authority. The reason I'm repeating that is because in most instances, people don't take me serious. But at least today, I'm not the person representing Kipkrui, so you should take him serious. Secondly, as we are waiting, in case you see me sweating, it's not because of stage fright. I hope all of you are feeling the warmth in this building. So you please excuse me. So as you have heard, I'm going to set the pace and the stage for our discussion today. And the key word today is Tvet in action, but the most important word there is changing. That means we are in a transition space. When you are in a transition space, you are bound to experience a lot of teething problems here and there. However, the teething problem should not deter the kid from growing. So maybe today, most likely, we'll be addressing the teething problems that we have faced since we started the implementation of Tvet and coming up with the strategies and way forward of forging forward. My presentation, I'll look at slightly at the policy framework. I'll look at the Presidential Working Party on Education report. I'll touch something on infrastructure, something small. I'll look at the trainers' qualification. For Tvet to be successful, we need very good trainers. We also need very good curriculum design and assessment techniques to assess the Tvet trainees and graduates. And also, I cannot overemphasize what have been said, the industry linkages, because it's more of training with the industry, in the industry, and we are training for the industry. And lastly, at this era and age, we can't speak about any educational system without digital transformation. Everything is going digital. Under introduction, currently, what is the force behind the change of the curriculum design or the educational system? What is really pushing us is the issue of unemployment. And the statistics are indicating that in 2020, 10.4% of our youths were jobless. That's approximately 5.7 million. And people are asking, why are the youth not attracting jobs? Or why are they not able to generate jobs by themselves? And therefore, it is because of that that experts started thinking about, can it be an issue of the curriculum? Can it be an issue of the assessment? Can it be an issue of the industrial linkage? And experts were able to arrive at all the three, that it centers between industry linkage, curriculum, and assessment. And a study was done in countries that are using different curriculum design, and it was found that countries that are using Tvet as their curriculum design had lower unemployment rates compared to Kenya. And therefore, there was need to embrace that. Under legal framework, I am from the Tvet Authority, and the authority is in charge of regulating all the training that takes place in Kenya. Therefore, Tvet being a form of training, therefore we are in charge of regulating. And in the process of regulating, we have to accredit the institutions to ensure that they have capacity to offer Tvet. We have to approve the curricula to ensure they are good and addressing the needs of the industry. We have to license the trainers to make sure that they have the minimum qualification to be trainers. Still under the policy framework, we regulate the training in the Tvet subsector using various standards and guidelines that we have gazetted. We have gazetted over 10 standards and guidelines. However, for this Tvet, the ones that are in red are the key in implementation of the Tvet. The first there at the top is the trainer's qualification framework. That we have to ensure the people who are handling the trainees in our Tvet institutions are qualified. And the qualification framework states the minimum qualification for one to be a trainer, for one to be a curriculum developer, for one to be a Tvet assessor, for one to be a verifier, and one to be a monitor and evaluator. All that information is contained in that. We also have a very, very key standard that is called the CBETA standard. That is competence-based education and training and assessment standards. All of you who are preparing or developing CBET curriculum, you must use that standard. It's the one that sets the minimum standard for development of a CBET curriculum. It also guides from the process of development of occupational standards, because we know CBET curricular development commences with development of occupational standards. And when you are talking about CBET, you can't talk about CBET in isolation without mentioning recognition of prior learning. And therefore, that's why we have the recognition of prior learning, which guides recognition of skills that have acquired elsewhere without minding where it was acquired from. Because if you are training someone on CBET and someone has prerequisite knowledge on repair of engines and he wants to undertake engine technology, it might be prudent to use RPL and recognize that he has that skill and maybe exempt the trainee from undertaking units that leads to that competence. We also have the CBET assessment tools. We said assessment is key. It guides on the development of assessment tools. We also have the CBET Assessment Center, because assessment have to take place somewhere. So we have to verify and ascertain that the assessment centers are ready to do the assessment. Lastly, we have a very key one, National Polytechnic Standards and Guidelines. This is very important because we know National Polytechnic have a huge mandate. Key among them is to develop curricula. They develop curricula, they assess, they train, they certify. That means before one is loaded with such responsibility, then we have to make sure that the trainers, the facility, the infrastructure, the curricula are ready for such huge mandate. And that's why we have a standard and guideline that guides that process. I've already touched on the mandate of the authority. Now I look at the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms recommendations that affect CBET. First, it is for us to be able to implement CBET effectively, we have to ensure all the players that are doing CBET are under one umbrella, so that we know what the left arm is doing, what the right arm is doing, and their key mandate was to bring all the players in Tvet under one act, and that is the Tvet Act of 2013. Also, as I said, that we need qualified trainers, and trainers, therefore there was need to establish a trainer service council, which was recommended, so that it can manage and address the issue of trainers. And we need to have qualified trainers too, and that's why through the Executive Order number 1 of 2022, KTTC was elevated to KS Tvet, so that they can have a broader mandate on training, preparing our trainers, and ensuring that there's continuous professional development of our trainers. And their emphasis was to strengthen Tvet linkages with industry and Tvet linkages with the university for vertical progression, because our graduates also have ambition to progress vertically in terms of academic and in terms of career. So there's need to enhance that linkage on transition. In terms of infrastructure, Uh, this is based on a quality audit that was done by the authority, and it has identified some positives and some areas that we need to improve when it comes to infrastructure. And what was noticeable is that we have a good number of Tvet institutions that have industrial grade training equipment in one or two areas of specialization. You go to an institution, you find they have a state-of-the-art training equipment or industrial grade training equipment, either in electrical, mechanical, automotive, civil, or water technology. However, it was also noted that in some few institutions, there was idle capacity of those equipment. So there is need to optimize the utilization of the industrial grade equipment that we have, most likely maybe by strengthening the linkage with the industry so that industry maybe can come in and we see how we can use the same equipment to do production. Also, in terms of enrollment in Tvet, most of the Tvet institutions are doing good. However, it was noted that there, in courses, they were exceeding maximum capacity of enrollment, the approved maximum capacity. Because for CBET to be effective, the class size has also to be good. The trainer to trainee ratio has to meet the standard. I can see some colleagues here that we were with for benchmarking trip in Germany last week. And there the class size, if I lie, they will correct me, a maximum of 16 per student. So when we are talking about aligning to international standards, that is Germany. For us, our standard says for technical subject, a maximum of 25. For business-related and social studies, courses that don't have high practicals, 30 maximum per class. So also there were some cases of inadequate resources that we need to look at for us to effectively mount CBET in some other institution. There are some few areas where obsolete equipment was still being used for training, while currently we are talking about Industry 4.0 and Industry 5.0. Also, there was need to embrace that. Also, it was noted that there is a big need to embrace the idea of centers of excellence, so that if I come to Nyandarua, where the chief principals come, that the entire of Kenya knows Nyandarua is known for agriculture. That's an example. If someone is in Lokchogio and wants to do agriculture, the first option that comes to mind becomes Nyandarua because you are a center of excellence in Nyandarua. Someone else is a center of excellence in electrical engineering and you major in that, and there's always benefit in being a center of excellence. I've already addressed the issue of trainers qualification, so I'll not repeat it. About the issue of the ratios in CBET classrooms. And of importance that was also mentioned was that we asked trainers if they have industrial exposure. And most of the trainers indicated that the only time they had industrial exposure is when they were doing their industrial attachment, which was about 2 months to 3 months for those who are lucky. So you see, there's great need also to have a program of having our trainees to have industrial exposure. And this was a recommendation from Presidential Working Party report, where they said that there's need to have a policy on trainers' industrial attachment. That was a recommendation there. When it comes to CBET curricula, CBET curricula is a design and an approach. So it has an advantage that it's a design and an approach. So there's a CBET curricular design, and there's an approach or methodologies or methods of teaching or training CBET. So being a design, for those institutions that have gone through the development of CBET curriculum, we should prepare you in advance that it is a lengthy process, one. So you can't say you are starting CBET in automotive today and tomorrow you are mounting. So you should plan effectively because it's a lengthy process. And two, it's an expensive process because you have heard it involves industrial experts. At minimum, there's better standard and guidelines guides that you must have at least a panel of 13 to 15 coming from different sectors. It has guided on the sectors that you have to draw your experts from. And also some misconception from the study that was done that CBET is purely about practicals. And that notion has also affected the curriculum designs that are coming out. That is a misconception. CBET, when you define, they'll tell you competence means that you must possess knowledge. The knowledge is academia. That means there must be some theories that you'll be teaching your trainees. You must expose them to some scientific theories and other things. Also, there is the issue of skills. And lastly, attitude. But now, since we are training to the industry, we are talking of attitude as job-related behavior. How you behave, your attitude towards work, employer, customer. So that's the attitude that wants to create. So as you are designing those curricula, ensure it has those three components. It is able to impact knowledge, it is able to impact skills and attitude. We have seen some level 6, that's diploma, curricula in engineering that has no any unit in engineering mathematics because of the idea that it is purely skills and therefore, so that is a misconception that we would like to. The other slide, I don't need to take you through it, just to show you how lengthy the process is. That is how lengthy the process is, about 14 stages, each taking about 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes a month for each stage, so you can see it is lengthy. Assessment is also another area. And assessment here is just preparing you as a regulator on the rigor of assessment of competence-based. The assessment of competence-based, one is criterion referenced. Criterion referenced, it means that assessment is done based on a certain standard set by the industry. It's not based on a norm or a normal group. Here we don't do standardization of marks. It's criterion referenced. That means if it's a standard set by the industry must be present during assessment to witness that the industrial standards are being met. So that is one of the conditions. Secondly, it is evidence-based. It is evidence-based. If I'm supposed to exhibit a skill in wall and floor tiling, I must be able to be given, maybe if I'm not supposed to sketch or draw or design, I should be able to interpret the design and do the wall and floor tiling. That means that assessment alone can take 3 days. Assessment in walling and floor tiling alone can take 3 days because I have to build the wall, I have to do the floor. It is evidence-based. I have to demonstrate I have those skills. Now, suppose you are doing a level 6, which is a diploma in building and construction. And assessment of one skill is about 3 days. That means to assess the entire level, you need about 3 weeks. So that's how assessment is going to change. That's how assessment is going to change. You are talking about the changing environment. That is what we were to discuss today. So I'm just sensitizing you on how the nature of assessment is going to change from paper-based, 2 hours assessment, to an assessment that might take longer and evidence-based. There is also the other concept that is coming in, that is on dual training. That is on dual training. Currently, we are preparing the dual training policies, the dual training standard and guideline and the rest. Just to sensitize is that dual training is not an approach to CBET. It's not an approach. That means dual training is not a methodology. Dual Tvet is also a design and an approach. The design is that it must have its own curricula. That is the curricula that will be stating what the institutions will do in training, and a training regulations or curricula that will state what the industry will do and how the assessment will be done. Who will assess what, who will train what, the qualification of the trainers, and the approach is that it takes place in two areas, in the Tvet institution and in the industry. So as we are also preparing, let us be alive to that it is a design and we should commence the process from developing the two. Lastly, is on digital transformation. It is becoming increasingly expensive to acquire equipment to train in Tvet. By the time you start training, the equipment is obsolete. By the time you finish, it is not required in the market. So there is need to embrace digital skills so that where we can use now the digital application also to train. For example, you can train some elements of welding using virtual reality and augmented reality. You can do some few simulations so that you reduce your expenses on consumables by simulating some few aspects before they go to the lab. You also minimize breakages, because if you start training me through simulation, just like the way they train the pilots, aeroplane pilots, you can't trust a kurutu on the first day in a plane. So you take him or her through a simulator first when he has gained some skills. Otherwise, they will be grounding all the planes on their first day. So with that, thank you very much for listening to me.